Alright, coders, we're going to do game number 5 today for our Mission to Mars coding contest. By now you should see we have quite a few different sprites added and quite a bunch of code added, so this is turning into quite the complex project, but I hope you're having fun with it. Make sure you watch the other videos before you watch this one, because you won't be able to just start in the middle like if you just started on this one. Okay, so today we're doing project number 5. So I had the idea, right now block 5, okay. Let's just drag this, on block 4 I have when the sprite is clicked. Let's drag that to block 5, that'll save us some time. Except that instead of starting game 4, we're going to do a new message, and you probably guessed it, we're going to start game 5. Okay, so back to our backdrop first of all. When it receives game 5, we want that to be the same as the star background. So I'm just going to duplicate that. Start game 5. Game 5 is going to be helping the rocket land safely on the surface of Mars. So we're going to have a landscape, and the rocket's going to be coming down, and the player's going to have to move the rocket left and right, maybe up and slow it down a little bit, to maneuver around some obstacles and land safely in the green safe zone. Okay, so let's get started. Let's go ahead and run the program. Click 5. Now we have our starry background. We want to, for this one, go ahead and input our rocket. We're going to use a new sprite for this one, just because to me it's easier to have copies of the same sprite instead of one sprite that has a million different programs attached to it. So the size on that is definitely too big. Let's shrink it down. This one we could even shrink it down to a 20. That'll allow you to make more complicated landscapes if you want. Okay, so this rocket is going to be traveling down to land safely on the screen. What we want to do is add in here the usual broadcast statements that we do, which are events. When I receive clear everything, and when I receive start game 5, come up to looks. We want to hide on clear everything. We want to show on start game 5. Also, on start game 5, let's pick where we want it to begin. I want it to be kind of at the top of the screen and right in the middle. So go to, drag this over, X and Y. We want the X to be 0, and we could set this to be about 150, and that'll be a good spot to start every time. Okay, next thing we're going to do is add a landscape. Now there's different ways to do this. If you do it in the backdrop, or you can do it as a sprite. I think it's easier for the sake of this program to do it as another sprite. Before we move on though, let's name this sprite because rocket ship is too vague. We want this to be game 5 rocket. And then we can go ahead and draw the landscape, the surface of the Mars. I think for this one what we want to do is convert to bitmap. And then you can use your paintbrush tool, switch to a nice Martian landscape color, and just going to start drawing on the left side of the screen, and kind of, I don't know, you can make a flat spot if you want. You can do some curvy lines, however you think Mars should look for you. Maybe put a happy little rock right here. The thing to keep in mind though is we do need a safe spot for the ship to land. Now I drew my background from the left all the way to the right, and if we click the paint bucket we're going to fill underneath here too. Doesn't look quite right over here. All we have to do is drag this on our stage to get it in the right spot that we want. That'll look much better. Okay, the next thing we need to add though is a safe landing spot. We're going to say the red is dangerous and the green is safe. So pick a fill color of green, and I'm going to say for this one you want to be consistent because we're going to do this multiple times. Let's do 30, 100, 100. And then come in here and just, let's up our size here too. And maybe 20. And let's make a nice, safe landing zone. You're going to want it to be a little bit thick too, just for the sake of making it easier for the test to see if it's touching the landing zone or not. So here's our rocket. On this landscape, we're going to have the rocket come and land safely on the green while avoiding the red. Okay, I think that's off to a good start. Maybe Maybe I want to move this one a little bit to the left. Something like that. Ah, that'll work. Okay, now this sprite, and let's give it a name. This is going to be Game 5 Terrain. That's a way to describe the shape of the land or the kind of land you'll be landing on. You can call it whatever you want. I'd suggest to keep Game 5 on there so that you keep track of these sprites go together and it's on Game 5. Let's click on Game 5 Rocket, and we can just drag this code to the landscape and this code to the landscape. Except that on the terrain here, we don't want it to go to that 0, 150. So we're going to get rid of that. And now when we run the program and click the 5, the rocket and the surface of the Mars show up. Okay, let's add in some code now. Let's say the rocket on Game 5 Rocket is going to be always being pulled down by gravity. And so let's do a loop on that one. So go to Control. And we don't want to do a forever loop. We've talked about why those aren't a good idea for a project like this. So let's do repeat until. So we're going to repeat until the rocket is touching the green. So that's a sensing block. So come over here, touching color. Now, if you click on the blue, we can replace that color. And if you remember, we chose 30, 100, and 100. But if you don't remember, if those aren't the numbers you picked, you can always come down here with this little eyedropper. It turns your little cursor into a magnifying glass, and you can just pick here the color you want. I think it's 29. That's good enough. Okay, so when it receives start Game 5, it's going to show, it's going to start at the begin, and it's going to repeat something until it touches the color green. Well, what do we want it to repeat? For gravity, we want to change the Y value. So come here to change Y by 10. So we want it to be going down, so let's change that by -10. And we can decide once we run this code if you think that's too fast. I think that's too fast. So there's some things we can do to solve that. One is to come into Control and add a wait statement in here. So maybe wait 0.1. That's a little bit slower. Or the other way you could do it would be to change it by -5 instead of -10. Then it won't go down as fast. Okay, well, let's think about what we want to happen. Obviously, the green is hardly ever going to land right underneath the rocket, so we need to be able to have the player move the rocket. Let's stop this. And on this sprite, let's add an event. So you can have the green flag we're not going to use. We've got broadcasts that trigger things to happen. Let's add some buttons here. So right now I have here when space is pressed. Let's just test that out for a second. When I hit, this says when space is pressed, say hello for 2 seconds. So now that it's in there, if I hit space, it says hello, 1, 2, and then it goes away. So I know you can't see me hitting the space bar on the keyboard, but that's what I'm doing. And what we want to do is instead of the space bar, we want to use the arrow key. So this little triangle means you have different choices. Let's do a right arrow, and then let's figure out what we want to happen. When we hit the right arrow, we want the rocket to go to the right. So that's a motion block, and we don't want to go to an X, we just want to change the X by a number. So let's change it by 10. And maybe that's a little bit too fast, so let's change that to a 5. Bring it over here, and there it goes. And now if this code is running, the right arrow still works, which is pretty good. And that'll stop when it's... Oh, it didn't stop when it's the green. Okay, well, we'll look at that in a second. Let's duplicate this code here, though, and change it for the left arrow. Obviously, with the left arrow, we don't want to change X by 5. We want to change it by -5. That way, it'll go to the left. So left, I'm hitting the left arrow, it's going left. I'm hitting the right arrow, it's going right. And as long as the rocket keeps going down, the player should be able to maneuver the rocket safely onto the green zone. I don't know why that's not doing that, though. Okay, well, let's try this. Maybe Remember how that said 29 and I actually changed it to 30? Something like that. There we go. Land safely on the green zone. Okay. Let's do this. Maybe that's going too fast for us, though. So let's do a different event. Let's say the player should have the option to hit the up arrow to make it go down not so quickly. So we want to change under motion. We want to change the Y value by 10. So it's going to go down 5 every time, but if we hit the up arrow, it'll jump up 10. That should look kind of like the player has a little bit of control to slow it down, or you could even take back off if you wanted to with your arrow keys there. Okay, there's only a couple more things we need to do for this project. One, what do we want to have happen when the rocket hits the red? Well, we don't want a game over where it just starts over, but what I think would be smart would be to do a control statement with an if. Inside this repeat loop, let's check to see if it's touching red. So that would be a sensing, touching color, click on the blue, click on the eyedropper, click on the red. If it's touching color, then I think the easiest thing to do here would be to broadcast start game 5, right? When it touches red, it'll broadcast start game 5, and when it receives start game 5, it should start this loop over. So let's try that. Yep. Do you see what happens when it hits the red? Oh, so close. And so get safely on the green, things like that. Maybe you want to change this. Let's make that, to me, that's going a little bit too fast. And if we just did a 0.3 second instead of a 0.1 second delay, it's a lot faster. And one of the things you could do too is, well, maybe if the player feels confident, you could let him push the down arrow to change the Y by a negative number, right? So let's start it again. I've got it lined up now, and I'm going to hit the down arrow, and it just goes kind of a little bit faster. Okay. Now, what do we want to happen after it touches the green? Let's have our rocket say success, just like on the other ones, and then reset back to the title screen. So let's do an event, broadcast, clear everything, and then broadcast, go to main screen. So we're almost done. Let's hit our green flag. We're going to do project number 5. Get on over to that green. Let's arrive safely. And when it's done, it should say success, and then goes back to the title screen. Okay, but let's make this a little bit more fun for the player. So the program's not running. Let's come down here to this game 5 terrain. Let's add some more costumes. So this is where you as the creator gets to be really creative. So let's draw and paint some more terrains. So for mine, I'm going to we want to convert it to a vector. I find that the paintbrush works a little bit better as a bitmap, sorry. And then pick that color red again. This one we want to have 0, 100, 100 because that's exactly the same as what we want it to be. And you know what I think I want to do is run this, click on the 5, and then change this costume. Okay, that'll help us match our colors on the other backgrounds. So here's costume 2. We're going to draw a line. We want the color to be the same as this other one, which was 0, 100, 100. That's not going to work. Okay. Color 0, 100, 100. And maybe on this one, I want to have a nice wavy surface. Something like that. And that's obviously wouldn't be a very ideal place to land your rocket, but you could have. We want that to be, yeah, there we go. You want to convert it to a bitmap, then the paintbrush tool works really well. You want it to have a safe place though, and maybe you want your level to have some easy ones. So this one's going to be an easy one. 30, and then 100, 100. And let's just put a nice safe spot right on the top here. I mean, this is going to be the easy level because you don't want your player to start crying because it's too hard. So that's one. Let's make another one. Nope. Let's draw another one with the paint tool. Convert it to a bitmap. Use your paintbrush. Use the color 0, 100, 100 to make a nice red. And let's see how we can make this extra challenging for a player. Like, what if the spaceship actually needs to land safely inside this deep, dark cave, right? This one could be quite a challenge for a player to have to maneuver the rocket in safely. So we're going to switch back to that. Nice, same colors on the other ones, 30, 100, 100. And here's the safe landing spot. Okay, you can see how getting the rocket in here is going to be quite a bit more of a challenge. Let's try it out though. So we're going to come to GameFight Rocket. Let's get that loop started and see if we can't maneuver in here without too much trouble. Yeah, I'm going to have to hit the up arrow a little bit. We don't want to hit the red because if we hit the red it's going to start over. And then we landed safely. Okay, so you can, as the creator, like I said, you can add as many of these kinds of costumes as you want. There's just one more bit of code we need to add though. Let's have, when this sprite receives start game 5, let's have it change the costume. So bring this next costume over. So we run this, we hit the 5, there's that one. If we, next time we run it though, it'll do the different one. And then the next time we run it, it'll be even a different one. So that's a great way to add some challenge to this one. And that's it for game number 5. Oh, wait a second.